Steering44 here with a new video. Let me see if everything looks good. I had a problem before once with the camera. The slides were working well, smoothly. It's just the camera started tweaking out. Let's see how it looks. Sounds. Hope you sound chill. Test, test. Sound chill. You already know how to do it live. If you're new to these videos, I don't have a script. My script are the pictures that I create, the slides. And I'm just doing it based off of what I remember, what I wanted to say and shit. It's all in here. Live mic, dead crowd. Just gotta make sure it plays. That was my issue. Today, it's gonna be truth in pop culture and video games. Now, this is something I've always seen. It's just I love video games. I love movies, television, film. Like, I just start to realize so many thoughts that could be connected, so many similarities. Like, it's obvious there's a message, there's some history, something they're trying to tell us through entertainment. And if you think about it, throughout entire history of humankind, plays, theaters, performances like this and shit, were to tell history, stories, stuff like this. But then now we see so much like it's becoming relevant, like in video games. How much they're predicting the future, supposedly, or shit like that. So let's jump into it. We're gonna start with MK Ultra. This is something we see a lot of, and throughout entertainment, little bits and pieces of it. So the first one I can think of is Clockwork Orange. That's like a super famous movie that gets into like MK Ultra. So it's about like some kid, some teenager, some bad kid misbehaving, ends up getting sent to a boarding school where they're trying new things to change the behavior of bad behavior, through certain methods, and the methods they used in the movie were kind of fucked up. They would strap him down in a movie theater. They put chemicals in his eyes, and these chemicals were of course like drugs. My bad. Most likely psychedelic. So he was forced to like strap down on the fucking chair and like watching fucking fucking disturbing ass videos on the screen. He was forced to watch like wars, videos of wars, tragedies, just chaos on a screen. And it was like multiple like couple second clips just flashing in his face. And they get into like the shock therapy, I think, as well. Another movie that like exposes this stuff is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson, and that's a really good movie. And they explain shock therapy, and that was used. I don't know. It's on Wiki. I'll look it up after later. But on Wiki, it talks about how MK Ultra was started by Department of Defense, some department like that, some government department like that, and eventually the CIA, FBI adopted it and continued on because Department of Defense stopped it. They told us, they stopped the program. It was only like a couple year type of program, but that's a total lie. They continued it. These other agencies and shit. But one of the methods, earliest methods, was shock therapy. You know, physically changing the wiring of the brain. You're like frying somebody's brain to the point where you pretty much fry it till it's a blank slate and you can work with, right? And start implementing you're pretty much turning someone into a senile baby and then raising them up again. Is how I see it. Like that's how I see the method they were trying to do with the shock therapy and shit. But yeah, electricity's like used. And we'll get into that more, the lights, the flashes, the videos. But to continue on with the movie, he was strapped down, the drugs. It's super relevant. It's super easy for MK Ultra to be done today. These screens were exposed to constant tragedies, were exposed to constant negativity, riots, political distress, religious distress, a bunch of bullshit going on, right? To piss you off. Just a bunch of videos. Content entertainment is just negativity. Like that's the biggest entertainment right now. Is negativity. It started with Vine. It was funny at first. But then Vine took off, these 30-second clips being exposed constantly to shit. Eventually TikTok Musically kicked off. It was Musically after that. And then after Musically came TikTok. And then a bunch of other apps like Instagram, YouTube started implementing shorts, short videos. And eventually it became like information, like constant information. Like the shit I'm talking about, negativity that sells. It became much easier to promote this negativity. So we're constantly exposed to this light. And I'm going to get into more about light, the light spectrum, and different types of unhealthy light and all that other shit. But the substance of legal substances now as well. We see how psychedelics are becoming legalized, marijuana. Alcohol has, of course, always been illegal and shit, but there was a point where alcohol was illegal because it changes the mind and shit. Like, it alters your behavior. That's not natural. Any drug, any substance that does that. We can go into Charles Manson. I could have done a whole slide about him. Like, I already got into it a bit in one of my older videos, the lawyers with OJ and this trial and all that. But Charles Manson, he would use drugs. Another physical type of manipulation, MK Ultra, mind control and shit. There's different tactics of like breaking someone's mind down through physical trauma, mental trauma, emotional trauma. But he would use drugs and sex. And I like to think you could use sex to manipulate and control people by like I always think of it like a virgin and someone who's well experienced like in sex, right? That virgin, he's a virgin, like, but the experienced person, when they have sex, like they're not gonna take those emotions they have during sex too seriously. That drive. What am I trying to get? A virgin might mistaking that pleasure, that lust, and they might mistake it for love, right? Attraction. But the other person can see that and be like, oh, so you think because I'm having sex with you that I love you and shit. You know what I'm talking about? And also the drugs on top of that, break someone down with the drugs. You fuck someone up. Like, it's some fucked up shit. But we see how like it went from trying to be low key implementing this MK Ultra into society and like sending people to like asylums to experiment on them and shit, or hospitals. Another thing too, like hospitals. They do it with pharmaceuticals now. All the therapists and shit experiment with you on that stuff. Fuck. It's just wow. It's to the point where we're choosing to be controlled. We're choosing to be manipulated. And it's so sneaky, it's so sly, we don't even realize it. Men in Black, they get into a bit of the flashing of the light, manipulation, making you lose your memory or like mind control. I think in the movie they're able to control people with that flashing thing. Like, boom, oh, you were doing this and that, you're still doing this and that. Continue on doing what you're doing because nothing happened. This is what they do in the movie. Like they tell them what to do. It reminds me of this one dragon breath, this drug that they use. Like it's a dangerous drug. Like people have been robbed because, it's like a dust and you blow it in their face. It's like a plant, and you pretty much lose memory of what's going on, and they can control you like a zombie, like tell you to empty out your apartment, shit like that. MK Ultra is it's so easy now with technology. This primitive technology taking over. Unhealthy spectrums of light. We got blue light. Something I've heard about. I'm gonna get into Bluetooth as well and shit. Now, when you look into light and spectrums of light, you learn that like radio waves, yeah, and gamma rays, radiation and shit like that is light, is energy, because light is energy, right? So it is part of the spectrum of light that we just can't see. But blue light, a lot of technology implements blue light. I'm sure you might have a workplace that you has blue lights, but it can induce headaches, migraines, the worsen the pain of other symptoms. It could lead to eye fatigue. I've noticed like staring at certain screens too long, or like being in a building with certain lights too long, your eyes start to hurt. I've noticed with other people around me too, like at my work. Some guy was talking about how like his eyes are starting to hurt and he has to get his eyes checked out. It suppresses melatonin, disruption of sleep. It becomes harder to sleep. I had a doctor tell me like to stop using my phone, stop looking at it, stop listening to it. Keep it away from you by your head when you sleep because it makes it hard to sleep. Like it activates your brain and shit to stay awake. Causes damage to the eyes, of course. Bluetooth, super unhealthy. I forgot this video. Some guy had like a Geiger counter, or I forgot what you call those. He puts it up normally in the air with away from nothing. It's like a normal count of the air, right? And he goes up to someone with Bluetooth AirPods, and that shit spikes up to like an unhealthy level, I think. With that Bluetooth, I've noticed I get headaches a lot when I use the Bluetooth, or like when I throw them on laying down. And after a while, I start getting headaches. I've noticed with the phones too, they get hot, they heat up. My thumb starts to burn, my hand starts to burn. Like they're producing energy, heat. A lot of this technology we use that's unhealthy. Of course, I heard when you put laptops on your lap, it kills the sperm because it's like too hot. Some crazy shit like that. Unhealthy spectrums of light. People looking at their phones all the time, looking down at unnatural light, looking at the world through unnatural light when there's the sun literally outside lighting everything up for you. It's a trip. Like you become desensitized to the real world, to real light because you're looking at some bullshit light. Does that make sense? Like I don't know. I There's just something about going outside, looking around, looking at the plants. Not on your phone, just with your eyes. Microwaves too. Microwaves, I think Bluetooth's like on the similar spectrum of like microwaves, shit like that. Radio waves. Now that I think about it, they probably didn't do studies of this. They should have. But I wonder when they started, radios became popular thing, became a nationwide, worldwide thing. I wonder if headaches started to go on the rise as well because of radios and shit. I feel like a lot of diseases we have nowadays are new because of technology. A lot of cancers are new because of like I feel like a lot of this shit wasn't didn't exist back then because technology wasn't advanced, like exposure to different type of energies and shit. We're gonna move on to a cool ass segment. One I find interesting, one that a lot of video games, movies, TV shows, pop culture in general, they reference bioengineered weapons. First movie we're gonna get into, my favorite movie of all time, Alien. Let's look at the slides here. The homie Alien, Xeno. Okay, they're chill. Now in this movie, we're gonna see a lot of similarities in other movies and TV shows and shit. But then in the Alien franchise, they get into the engineers who stumbled upon the goo. I forgot like some alter shit. I haven't seen the prequels yet. Kind of hesitated, but I want to now to get into the history of this shit. But they stumble upon the black goo. They end up finding out that this black goo can manipulate, change the DNA of living creatures that come in contact with it. And so they create. Supposedly in this franchise, humans came from the engineers who used this black goo to create them using their DNA as well. And they thought they messed up that we were a failure, so they tried exterminating us with the Xenos. Now the Xenos, it's very similar to like a mold, is what I think of when I see it, like a mold of fungi, which is something we see a lot of. We'll get into. Also reminds me of Venom, like a symbiote needing a host to really survive and thrive and multiply. Because from Venom, there came multiple other symbiotes, right? He had children or like brothers or some shit like that. I know there's like a whole separate like god entity who created those symbiotes, but I'm pretty sure like in the movies too they get into that how like when Venom came, so did the other. I don't know. I don't really remember that too much. But we get into like the bioengineered weapons, and then we kind of get into what's going on currently with the pandemics and shit. Those could be bioengineered weapons for all we know. I don't know. Shit's kind of getting creepy. Shit's kind of getting too real, too similar to the video games, the TV shows we watch. Resident Evil, very similar. You know, the two new games, they get more into detail about the history of the viruses, where they come from. Now, Mother Miranda, the lady on the bottom, she was the one who found the Megamycete, the OG strain, the first strain. And it was a mold, a fungi, a mold. And it was found like that. It looks like a giant heart, the heart of the Megamycete. And I'm gonna get into that too, Nephilim. Oh fuck, how am I gonna bear with me? Okay, let me just start. Let me explain a little bit more of Resident Evil. So Mother Miranda is the OG creator, discoverer, of Megamycete. You know, the OG strain that created it all. Then we get Oswald E. Spencer, who founded Umbrella. He would go to Village, like he would go visit Village, and he met Mother Miranda, who showed him and taught him about the Megamycete, and he was fascinated by it. He loved the stuff. And have James Marcus, of course, being one of the main villains of the video game, the agents, the mastermind behind a lot of the shit that happens. But Oswell, um, Mother Miranda, she's experimenting with it. She's trying to. There's a whole story with her and Evelyn, the child, trying to create an immortal child, trying to bring a child back to life using the Megamycete. Some crazy shit like that. Oh, it's because the child gets killed by the Megamycete because she's experimenting with the kid, and then she believes that the child's soul, memory, consciousness, because the Megamycete is like a hive mind. She believes that it's still gonna be inside the Megamycete, like the Megamycete still gonna have her consciousness and shit. So she believes like if she spreads it out, if she exposes other people to it, that she could come back to life. That she could bring her back through these experiments, these other people being infected. So she gives it to Oswell, and then he goes off, creates multiple strains, viruses. Of course, other companies and shit are trying to do the same thing. Okay, so that's a bit of the backstory of fucking Resident Evil. It's a really good game. I love it. I have the movie I have to watch still, but the video games, really cool ass story. Now the reason I put Nephilim there is because we learn a bit in Village, and in the first game too. That when when creatures are exposed to the viruses that come from the Megamycete, it it causes gigantism. In the first game, we see it with the spiders, the sharks, the bugs. We see it throughout the games with the bugs, shit like that. They become giant. Same with the people. Mother Miranda's children, like one of her daughters, like grew taller because of being infected as a side effect from the Megamycete. It could be a reference to the Nephilim, bloodlines, ancient bloodlines. Now, of course, in Resident Evil, the origins is a mold, from a mold virus. Of course, we get into the Nephilim. That's for like that gets into like biblical religious stuff. But I see how they hint at old families, government agencies being older than what we're told. Um, it's all from a Umbrella came from a religion too. Umbrella was like a cult pretty much that came from Mother Miranda. I think that's what happened. And then we get into like four, like more people who got into the cult with the families over there in Spain, I believe. But that's another bioweapon because they focused on bioweapons and shit in this universe. Same with freaking. I'm telling you, like the military throughout history. If the military had good resources, good supplies, they're always first to get the cool shit. I should say that because of military shit. Innovation comes from the military. Best way to fucking put it that way, the best way. A lot of innovation came from the military. We got planes, tanks. We got a bunch of cool shit from the military, radar. I can go on all day. I believe gunpowder. I'm pretty sure they like a lot of things invented were implemented in war and shit. Oh. Similar mentions, The Last of Us, of course with the fungus. Never played it, but we see the fungus again. And then a franchise I love, even the classic ones, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Now, of course, the newer ones focus more on the drugs, diseases, causing an outbreak, causing the change, causing the apocalypse, and all that other shit, causing different viruses and all that stuff. In the originals, they didn't get into in the originals, how the apes rise up is I think there was a disease that was like this is the original Planet of the Apes, the plot of like how everything started. So there was a disease like killing off most of the pets, like dogs, cats, or I forgot what. I think they were just getting not popular anymore. People got tired of them, or they were just dying off because of a disease. And so they started using apes, chimps, and shit, replacing them, making them as pets. And they ended up liking them more than what they used to have, dogs, cats, because they were smart. They were able to do shit for you, able to learn stuff better. And eventually they got to a point where they started evolving naturally, I believe. That, I don't know if the originals, I forgot. I don't know if they were implementing like drugs, experimenting with drugs on them. I think they were. At the same time, they were just learning and like evolving as well. And eventually they become as smart as us, and they rebelled and rose up. And during that, there was also tensions with China. There was a whole civil the Cold War going on, right? And then we get the nuclear apocalypse in the movies. There was a bunch of reasons why the old movies were all over the place, but I loved them. Of course, we get to the newer ones, Rise of the Planets, and we get how he's creating a new cure for Alzheimer's, and he's testing it on chips and apes, and he realizes that they get smarter, these chips and apes, but of course, it doesn't work on people. It backfires and ends up the body ends up denying the medication, I believe, after a while. Like, but humans were the only ones able to like, I mean, apes were the only ones able to like be compatible with the drug he created. And so that's how they got smart and shit. But bioengineered weapons. What else did I want to add? Hold up, who was that? It's nothing. Okay, the next slide. Wars with stars. Now, the recent one, what inspired me to make this video, this slide, was the new Black Ops 2 reference. Supposedly, they predicted that, the plot in the game, the United States and China, they go to war with each other with tariffs over rare earth minerals and shit, metals. And then we see what's going on today, like super similar, which is creepy as fuck. The Cold War, I've always felt that shit's always been going on. That shit never ended. As long as we have nukes. Because I think the whole thing was to prevent nukes or just to control the nukes. Shit's crazy. And then we get Fallout 2, video games like Fallout. That talk about the greed of not just the governments, but as well as Vault Tech. Because Voltec supposedly initiated the war so they could get a bunch of money off of people buying the volts and shit. And oh, they supposedly detonated their own fucking nukes, causing China and the U.S. to think they're nuking each other. But we see how corporations play a part in starting wars to profit off of them. Like in World War II, a bunch of our factories in the United States, they were making tin cans, right, for food and shit. They converted all that tin industry to war, building parts for planes, tanks. They were probably making a shit ton of money too. And it was the food industry, the can industry, that converted a bunch of the factories into war factories. What the fuck? I broke it? That's scam. Hopefully it works though. But we just see the greed. And of course, Stranger Things, they get into Russia as well. You know, Russia finding out the same technology that we have. And then they're using it, trying to use it for war and shit, for weapons. But then that gets into like, I can get into like aliens too, or Roswell, the US. What's it called? Reverse engineering a bunch of this technology. And not just the US. Of course, during the war, the Nazis and shit, they were getting into crazy stuff. You know, they were pretty much collecting all these ancient artifacts, information, bunch of scientists they were probably kidnapping from all over the world they were fucking conquering, right? I'm not if I'm correct, weren't they the ones who invented like tanks, the fucking Germans? And it's crazy because the US created the nukes, and yet we gatekeep them the fuck out of them. It's just insane. I don't blame these other countries for making them. Cause why not? Why the fuck would they trust a single country with all the nukes? Like that's insane. I think we're the top ones. China, Russia. I think France has a good amount. Britain has a good amount. I think India's on the come up with nukes. Some crazy shit like that. But you know, War with Stars. You know, it's very close to Star Wars. Political in Star Wars too, they talk about he even said it was like it's more of an opera, like a political opera and shit. Is the way George described it. Like a bunch of influence he got from it was from religions, of course, but of course government. They talk about the Senate, all that other shit. Civil wars, wars with stars. I'm telling you. Red Planet, ancient civilizations. One thing that's becoming popular, an idea, a conspiracy theory, if you want to call it that, is that ancient civilizations inhabited like Mars, the moon, ancient astronauts. We get into ancient aliens that became popular with like within the last 10 years. And of course, they put shit out like that to make it seem like fucking entertainment. But they got it to a lot of the juicy shit that's always been talked about. Like before that show came out, I've always known about the conspiracies that like the moon had like cities on it. There's like videos supposedly they have. Some movies that I like a lot, Total Recall. They get into how Mars was inhabited by aliens. They stumble upon this technology, they don't know what it is. It was left behind by the aliens, but they were assuming that it was to heat up the. We end up finding out actually that they didn't assume that the technology was used to heat up the core because it had ice, right? An ice core. And they would use that to heat up the core to pretty much produce the oxygen and shit, creating Mars inhabitable again. And then we get into Doom series, the video game, and how they talk about they're finding ancient artifacts on Mars. This one dude, using them to make weapons, pretty much, his own army to take over the world. A lot of similarities. And then we got the fucking Elon wanting to go to Mars, wanting to fucking inhabit Mars. Of course, we need oxygen, and then fucking Total Recall. They get into like possibility that how we can produce oxygen up there. Thing is, I think it's Mars does have water because it's red, which is caused by the rust. I'm correct. The oxidation, whatever the fuck that's called. And I think they did discover like old riverbeds, lakes, and shit. And there's photos. Supposedly they found eggs, like spider eggs, weird rocks, a door frame, supposedly, weird shit like that. What else? I'm trying to think. We get the dark side of the moon. Supposedly they had bases up there, like China. Like they went recently with like a couple years ago, not too long ago, to the dark side. Supposedly the moon's artificial. It's not even real. It's a giant like spaceship, pretty much. There's like conspiracies that it's used to like monitor Earth. I forgot what. There's the bell theory, because when they landed on it, the astronauts when they first landed on it, they said it rung like a bell, the moon, and that's weird as fuck. Cause space, you're not supposed to be able to hear shit, or it's quiet in space. No one can hear you in space. So how the fuck did they hear that shit? I'm assuming the vibrations from the ship, right, making the noise from inside. But still, that's fucking weird. Cloning. Cloning we see a lot of in pop culture. Star Wars being popular, we got the Clone Wars. Coming from one single person, they created a whole army of millions, billions, I think. Palpatine supposedly had clones of him in the books. They get into how like he had clones of himself, like scattered throughout his HQs and shit. So he had backups just in case. And of course, they get in the newer movies. I didn't see it, but they get into that. They pretty much confirm that he did have clones. And Ray fights one of them, I think. And then, interesting enough, we get into cloning of children. Because Anakin, of course, this is a play on Christianity, where because Anakin's mom didn't have a father. Anakin didn't have a father. He was conceived by the Force. Is what pretty much George Lucas said. But now there's backstory of that supposedly Palpatine and his um his Sith master Plagueis, and Plagueis dies during the prequels and shit. He's behind the scenes. He's the rule of two. It was Plagueis and Lord Sidious, Palpatine. And Plagueis, he was into like genetics and shit. And so it's supposedly thought that he created Anakin with the Force by manipulating the midichlorians and shit. It's fucking crazy. It's some cool ass shit, honestly. But we just see like this, like the references. It's insane. Cloning is huge. Like some other movies I got into were Did I get into that? The Sixth Day starring Arnold. I fucking love Arnold Schwarzenegger. But in this movie, similar to Blade Runner, it's okay. I like Blade Runner. It's cool. It's older than the Sixth Day, so I'm pretty sure the Sixth Day, they got inspiration from it. Because I think in Blade Runner, and I'll talk about Sixth Day because I like that movie more. Blade Runner is very similar though with the cloning and shit. In Sixth Day, Arnold ends up in this world universe, in his universe, cloning is illegal. It's possible. They clone animals and shit in the movie, which is this movie's ahead of its time. 2000. You can clone animals today for like 60,000. Your pets, but they get into that in this movie. Cloning pets. They get into the AI, the robots being implemented in children's toys. Because he ends up buying his daughter like an AI doll that like talks, cries, and shit. But they get into like how cloning is illegal in this movie. But there's one guy who owns a cloning corporation, like the most popular one. So cloning a full human's illegal, but you can clone like body parts, organs, which is the guy was his company's known for. But like cloning a full human being was illegal. But he was doing it behind the scenes, and he had a bunch of clones of himself. It's a good ass movie. You gotta check it out. But the way they make the clones, it's interesting. So in order to transfer memories or have similar personalities of the person you want to clone, the way they transfer their memories is through the eyes. So they scan your eyes, your retinas. Now in the movie, the machine they had, it can only go up to a certain time period of how much they can take your memory and shit. I forgot exactly how it worked, but they would scan your eyes and you would have a certain amount of that person's memory. And they would take blood tests, of course, to make the bodies. But in this movie, they had blanks. They needed blank bodies first, blank avatars, pretty much, in giant tubes. And they would use these blank avatars, and they would get your DNA and start building on top of that blank avatar. So it's not completely from like ground zero, right? Building a human body in this movie, but it's a blank slate, and they just scan over you. It's some crazy. It's some fucking Ultron, um, Vision shit from Avengers. And then Blade Runner, of course, we get into the clones, cloning people, originals being sought after in this movie, in Blade Runner. And I think originals was illegal. I forget. I have to rewatch that movie. Do I have it in my repertoire? I thought I had it. Jeez, I thought I had Blade Runner. How the fuck do I not have that one? I got a stupid ass jumper. Why do I have that movie? I got Blade. I don't have Blade Runner. How the hell do I not have Blade Runner? Ooh, I got some movies that are similar. That's another subject. I swear, I thought I had Blade Runner. She. All right. Those are some of my favorite movies. Jurassic Park. This is the last segment. Jurassic Park. Cloning animals. We'll get into a bit of it right now. Now, Dolly the sheep was cloned in 96, sometime around there. Jurassic Park came around 98, 99. I forgot when exactly. But we see now in modern time they successfully cloned the dire wolf. This is just recent news, which is insane. It's not, I know it's a wolf. It's a mammal, but still. One thing I heard about recently they were trying to do was the woolly mammoth. That was like sometime last year I heard. And they're trying to use the Asian elephant. And I forgot where they got the DNA from a specimen because they found some specimens that were really intact, really well. They got the chicken dinosaur I remember hearing about a few years back. But we get into Jurassic Park and they get into the DNA and shit. And then the way they describe their process is very similar to what's going on now, where they're adopting or they're implementing old DNA with new DNA. They're combining DNA, which is fucking crazy. And we could go back to like the mythology in ancient history of human animal hybrids. And we can get into homunculus, all the other shit. This is something that's been trying to be done for a long time. Could have been done already. Now we get into like reptilians, cryptids like that, wolfmen, dogmen, werewolves. We get into like weird shit like that. The Nephilim being half human, half animals, like the Egyptian gods. Are they going to create a human animal hybrid? Of course, we see those famous photos of that shit already, which is pretty wild. I think I'm going to end it here. We have time to watch some videos. This is the longest slide. Yeah, I think I'm going to end it here. I don't think I have to pull up any videos. I hope this guy's got you thinking. I know it has me thinking a lot. Hope you guys stay positive. Because it is a negative ass world. Stay thinking. Shit's about to pop off. That's why I'm making these videos. I feel like it's all about to be exposed. It's all about to be put out there. This alien shit, it was popping off last year. Could do a whole new video slide about that. But shit's getting crazy. Shit getting wild. Shit is getting real. Fiction is becoming non-fiction. Shit's getting wild, guys.